Hello, everybody. I'm really big meme jungler for Plastic 5 and Michigan State University's League of Legends team. I'm going to go over pick and ban to try and teach everybody a little bit. I've watched the VODs of all of my games from the twitch.tv/compete league videos tab. All of the VODs are thanks to them, and I didn't record any of it myself, so thanks for them. I'm going to use the VODs to kind of show you guys how to be better at pick and ban, because good pick and ban is usually the first step in creating successful best of 5 series, best of 3 series, any series really. So make sure that you guys can draft into your own winning conditions, not just winning conditions on the patch, and know what your team is comfortable with, even if it's not the best thing to do. Sometimes you just have to go with what your team is best at. And I'll show you how we do that and how NCSU does that throughout the best of 5 here. I'm going to mute the casters because I want to give you my opinion, unbiased, well, a little bit more informed than them because of our scouting. They had question marks on our bans that we knew were extremely important to ban out, such as Janna and Xerath from Honey. So, no disrespect to them. Kazakh's ban is pretty much a staple against me in particular. The champion is really strong right now, and I've always been really good at it, and it's my favorite champion. And people look at my solo queue stats that know me, and then they say, okay, I can't play the champion. That's how that usually has to go down. Some teams adapt and drop it, others don't. We had to respond with Ezreal because these games are on patch 7.23, which means Ezreal has to be permabanned with no nerfs and no kleptomancy nerfs. Champion's really unfair bot lane. The casters were saying it was more of a jungle ban, but Ezreal jungle is really bad once Storm Raiders was removed because he doesn't have a great way of staying on targets and getting off auto attacks and spells during ganks because phase rush is really bad of a keystone. NCSU's next ban was Rek'Sai. I kind of expected it to be in the opening of a series ban, but Rek'Sai is kept throughout, and I'll talk about that more later. But I have really good solo queue stats on Rek'Sai, and I think she's extremely good in solo queue. I don't actually think she's that great in competitive, and I barely practiced her for this final playoffs. But I knew with my good stats on her, she would be banned away from me a couple of times. We decided to ban Janna in most of the games because Honey's really good at the champion. He's been playing it a bunch in solo queue, even though the casters didn't really see it as a Honey champion because Honey is usually a playmaker. Janna's current state where she can build full AP is extremely oppressive and lane dominant. Not much counterplay to it. NCSU went with the Jhin ban. The most important thing to remember in the best of 5 series is that game 1 is exactly what teams prepared. So NCSU 100% wanted to ban Kha'Zix, Rek'Sai, and Jhin with no adaptations. If this was best of 1, those would have been their bans. So those are the champions they fear the most, while champions we fear the most are Shen, Janna, and Ezreal. We kept the Shen ban throughout the entirety in the series until we were down a game when it was 1 game from them winning. And I'll talk more about that later and why we chose that. But for the first game and the second game, we kept Shen banned because we believe first game, second game, and third game, Shen is really strong, and Wolf Skull Rider plays it extremely well because it works with the playstyle that NCSU has where they want to dive bot lane with a lot of people and make sure that their bot lane can get a big lead. And if they get a big lead on the team with a winning bot lane, then they usually transition into free wins for NCSU. So we took that champion away because we know how well that fits that playstyle. They first picked Blue Side Ornn. Remember, this is patch 7.23, so no nerfs at all on the champion. Ornn is extremely strong on this patch, but the counter pick is Braum. So we take Braum because you can't give the other team Ornn and Braum. And Seeker is extremely good at Braum, and it fits our playstyle where it gives me CC on champions that I play that don't have CC, like Graves, and mostly Kane. And here we pick Zoe, even though it's Teemo. Protroid will say it in chat. Teemo goes Zoe. Patch 7.23 Zoe. She just released, and the champion is absolutely nuts. We played it a lot in solo queue and scrims, and we know the champion is really, really good. So we knew there were a few counters for it, so we weren't necessarily scared. In most of our scrims, we'd let the other team have it if possible, because we wanted to play against it as well. The NCSU took Azir because I think Azir was the strongest, if not second strongest, to Zoe on the patch. Azir is extremely strong with Summonary, and his build path was really, really, really good. Like, if he gets 3 items, he'll carry the game by himself. And that was a pick that we wanted to get Lucido on for a lot of the series, but we didn't get opportunities that much. NCSU actually picks MF here, and we had zero doubt in our mind that it was going to AD carry. We didn't expect anything from a swap between MF to MF support, which is interesting. Even though we picked Xayah here, and MF actually kind of beats Xayah in lane because of the E for the ulti trade. It's kind of hard for Xayah to actually do anything, because the MF ulti lasts so much longer than the Xayah ulti, and the Xayah can't stop her ulti. So we went for it because we scrimmed a lot of Xayah Braum, and we knew just how strong that combo was. And I think we had amazing bans here. The casters didn't understand it, like I said. These were scouted target bans towards Hani, which kind of forced their hand into MF support, because MF without these... without Braum, Xerath, and the next poke support you'll see us ban, it is a really weak lane, and it can be abused, and maybe even force them into like something like Tahm Kench. But we know Hani doesn't necessarily like it in this meta. They banned Xin. Xin is the strongest melee duelist jungler on the patch. I 100% think this champion is overpowered on 7.23, and I was really willing to play it every time I prioritized the jungle pick over one of my teammates' picks. So we went with Karma because, like I said, we wanted to remove all of the poke combos with MF, and that kind of forced their hand into MF support, which is good for us and allowed us to have a really easy kill lane bot lane with Zoe. They took out Kane as well, which is another one of my comfort picks, and I think the champion is really good. But Graves was still open, so 4 jungle bans wasn't enough for them to give me on a champion that I couldn't carry on. Like I said, Graves is extremely good with Braum, and it gives Graves a way to stay on to champions. So with 280 carries, it's really easy to proc the Braum stun over and over, pretty much. And NCSU locked in Varus. That gives away 100% Misfortune support, because Varus support doesn't work, and MS support I think is bad. But this is the one time we got a carry matchup in the jungle. Was my Graves versus Penguin's Nidalee. I think Nidalee's an extremely strong champion. I think Penguin's really good at it, but he didn't show it in this game, and he played extremely poorly because I avoided his level 3 cheese invade. So when you avoid the invade, Graves was actually really strong, like at all in general, because you can get a really good first clear, and Nidalee wastes a lot of her time because she's running in my jungle trying to find me. And then we went with Cho'Gath into Ornn because we really liked that matchup as a team, where Cho'Gath can CC the Ornn. So, and he has percent max HP damage on his E, so that way he can win the lane and outtrade the Ornn, which is really hard, but it can be done, and our top laner is really good at tanks. So to wrap up the draft, NCSU drafted 4 poke squishy backline champions and only 1 frontliner, which put them at a really bad comp to kind of siege against Graves, Cho'Gath, and Zoe, because Zoe sleep catches 1 person and then the rest of the team gets baited to try to help that 1 person that got slept. In this game, we won the game because I got really far ahead and Penguin was really, really far behind. And he messed up 2 invades, and one of them he died and gave me a reset on double buff. I was actually greedy this game and went Dark Harvest, even though I knew Nidalee would go Electrocute. But I trusted myself in the matchup. I think usually it's better to go Electrocute to match Electrocute, which is something I adapt to in solo queue. But I was greedy against Penguin because I knew I could beat him in a carry versus carry matchup even without Electrocute if I didn't make an early game mistake, and I didn't. So we actually have winning matchup bot lane because we can kill them both really easy, even though it's hard to gank them with how good Hani is at warding and how good Penguin is at sitting bot lane to make sure they have vision. So we're forced out of lane, but it's okay because we swapped out and our bot lane stayed relevant, and that's all they had to do this game in order to win. So we drafted much better than NCSU, I would say. We had the Braum counter for Ornn. We had Zoe, which is just a really overpowered pick. Azir is really good, but he has no front line, so he can't actually do much. The Ornn LT will get stopped, or he won't be far enough to actually follow up on it because the Cho'Gath will be there to silence him, and the Braum can wall off the ulti. So Braum wall in this game is just way too good, and NCSU should not go for the Varus and the Nidalee picks. They should have just taken MF to support and gone Tom Kench, and then they could have gone Sejuani or something, and then this would have given them an insanely good comp against our comp, especially because Sejuani is much harder to abuse, and Sejuani isn't banned in any of these. So I think that was their mistake. Our mistake, I think we could have maybe waited on the Xayah pick if we were really scared and taken the Cho'Gath. Usually teams will ban 2 junglers in the second rotation against us, so it's not a huge worry for other teams to ban my teammates' champions because usually my champions get banned. And we're usually not very concerned, but we were this time around because game 1 is always hard because we don't know what the other team is really prepared. So we'll go into game 2 now. Game 2, we open up with Janna ban again. Like I said, it was a scouting thing. Hani plays it a lot in solo queue. It's really lane dominant. It's better, basically a better version of Bard in lane. And we know Hani loved to play Bard. So we stuck with our Janna ban, and then NCSU sticks with Kha'Zix ban because of the reasons told before. Kha'Zix is my best champion, extremely strong on the patch. We adapted the Misfortune ban because red side rotation of MF Braum is really, really good. So we didn't want them to get both of those champions when we want to first pick something else like a Zinzao or Ornn. We stick with Shen ban because Wolf Skull Rider is extremely good at it. And then NCSU went with Zoe ban because Zoe is really, really strong in the patch. This Zoe ban also increases the priority on Azir. Azir is now the undeniable best champion available for mid lane. And the red side has to ban Ezreal because it's patch 7.23 with no Ezreal nerfs and no Kleptomancy nerfs. So here we first pick Ornn because Ornn is incredibly strong. We weren't too nervous about NCSU playing towards a top side advantage because it's not something they actually usually do. So we trusted Ornn just to go blind and we wouldn't have a hard time because both of our teams don't play towards topside advantage. Our team never plays towards topside advantage. We usually just have tank versus tank is like what we love because we never actually practice a carry top laner after Degenerate later left the team. We use only tanks, and Thunder Kitty is extremely good on them, so we just stuck with it and then stuck with our playstyle. NCSU, instead of banning the Rek'Sai, they took it in the very first rotation on red side. They were really scared of letting me have it because they know it's a strong champion, but I don't necessarily love the champion in competitive because she can be shut down much easier and the games tend to go later, so she'll be more useless later. But they were really scared because of my solo queue stats. And then they take away Xayah because we had a really good performance on it in the last game, and it's a really strong champion on the patch. Right here, they give us more information than we expected. We thought they would maybe go with the support here, but the Xayah kind of scares us in Xayah Rakan. So even though we were scared, we still stick with Braum because it denies them from having Braum to counter Ornn. So this, like I said, the Ornn Braum combo is really, really strong. Having this on our team gives us really good team fighting potential, and we aren't very scared of their team fighting. And then we went with Jhin because Jhin counters Xayah, and Jhin is really, really good against Xayah. So already we have a really good comp building together. And then they pick a pick that we were highly not expecting. Really highly not expecting. Honey actually locks in Bard. We 100% didn't expect Bard, and I don't think Bard was much of a factor in this game, but we had no idea he'd actually just pull it out because we were banning Janna every time. It's like I said, Bard is like budget Janna on this patch, I felt like, because Janna's poke was just superior, shielding and healing is superior. Basically, she does everything better than Bard does except for Magical Journey. But we were not expecting the Bard at all. That shows right here that they aren't willing to play Xayah Rakan, in the Braum Jhin at least. I personally think the combo is worse on the patch, and I don't know if it's that great. Instead, they go with Bard, and then they ban Xin Zhao, because Xin Zhao is really good with our comp, and it's really good into Rek'Sai, and it's the best champion on the patch. We go with Narban because we don't want to have them have a natural top lane lead, so to say, just because of the 1v1. We didn't want them to have a champion that was strong in the Ornn that could carry the game, besides like a true solo carry like a Fiora or Jace, because NCSU typically does not play to that style. NCSU bans LeBlanc because Lucido is a trademark LeBlanc player, really, really good at the champion, really talented. So they dropped one jungle ban for a mid lane ban. Kind of nervous that he would blind LeBlanc, because no matter what, NCSU gets a counter pick if they want it, and they should. We banned Cho'Gath because the Cho'Gath is a good counter to Ornn if you want to match tank versus tank, which is usually what NCSU does. And then they pick the champion and completely throw us off as soon as it gets locked in on the update. Fiora was absolutely not on our radar. They don't play towards topside advantages. The casters were talking about it, and they were expecting a Fiora. Magical is happy that they got a Fiora. We were not expecting a Fiora. We were hoping it would be like a Maokai or something that could just go even, but now Ornn is directly countered hard and needs some serious assistance throughout the game. Just a gank or two can help him and put him through the laning phase. But we get it countered pretty hard there, but we still have winning bot lane, and I get Graves and Rek'Sai, which is winning matchup for me if I can not make a mistake on a level 3 gank. And we get Malzahar for Lucido, which is a comfort pick and really strong on the patch because he has Unbound Spellbook and Summon Airy are both great choices. And then NCSU goes for Karma. So this game is now 100% on Wolf Skull Rider and Rift Dog, and unfortunately it was good enough. Karma mid is also pretty good in the Malzahar. It's not that great, but Karma can afford to get a early QSS much easier than every other champion in the game can. This game was our fault because of misplays, and we ended up throwing this game. But NCSU had a really cool Karma pick, I'd say, and an unexpected Fiora pick, which allowed them to make up for their bad drafting in their bot lane, whereas we should not be completely blinded to a Fiora pick. However, being up one game, it doesn't matter as much if we make a mistake in draft. When you're playing a best of 5 or a best of 3 and you win the first one, you can be a little bit more lenient in the second one, since it doesn't make a huge difference based on what games you want to play, like how many games you can play. Because if you're up 1, then you can drop 1 and you'll still be fine. Whereas NCSU had to go for something they trusted a little bit more since they're down 1 game, but it doesn't truly matter in the best of 5 till it's the decider. So I think both teams had a really good draft, and drafts towards their typical advantage for us and an unusual advantage for them. But we made a mistake in the mid game and got Fiora way too far ahead for us to be able to deal with. It was a great play by NCSU, and they deserved the win because we gave it to them. All right, next pick and ban starts here. Fortunately, a little bit of it gets cut off due to transitioning, but that's okay. It's bans that have been kept the same. On red side for NCSU, they stick with, or sorry, blue side for NCSU, they stick with Kazakh's rec side because they're scared. It's really strong champion. Then we have to ban Ezreal on red side because Ezreal on red side is way too strong. And the champion is unbalanced. So at least on 7.23. 7.24, he is not as broken, but he's still extremely strong. We stick with the Shen ban that we've kept the last 3 games because we know how well it fits the NCSU playstyle, play towards the bottom half of the map. And we have seen them, we scouted through their upsurge games to see what champions they'd like to play. So we kept the Shen ban because they played it in upsurge and it worked well. NCSU adapts here to an Ornn ban, meaning they don't want to first pick it on blue. Ornn is actually 0-2 in the series already. Ornn has not won a game yet, and being one of the strongest champions on the patch is kind of surprising. But with Ornn being banned, Braum's value kind of decreases. But just because that happens doesn't really matter. He's probably the strongest support on this patch, usually in competitive play. We stick with Janna ban because we know Zoe is up, but we didn't think NCSU would actually be willing to play it since they didn't play it all in upsurge, even though Shadow Visions plays it a lot in solo queue, normal games and stuff. We knew he could play it, but we didn't know if his team could play around it, so we weren't actually very scared. So we stuck with it and said, it's okay, we'll ban Janna still, because Hani's Janna, again, really, really good. So they first picked Zoe. Kind of unexpected, but somewhat expected. The champion's ridiculously strong, great on the patch. We go with Braum's Eye again, because we had great success with it on scrims, and we won game 1 with it, so we're not really scared of them. Xayah at this point in the series is also 2-0. So it is a really strong champion in the series. And then this is the Xerath pick for Xerath support, or Zoe support. We knew it would be Xerath support. It was scouting that we did through, we saw NCSU's upsurge and some of their scrims. We saw them playing it in scrims and Hani playing it in solo queue. So we were aware of Hani playing it. And then this is the game where they get double poke bot lane again, because instantly whenever you have Xerath, you pick another poke champion. They went with Ashe, and Ashe is extremely good with Comet on this patch. So we were a little worried, but not necessarily, because we can do the same thing we did in game 1, where we just get a good swap off after they take first blood turret and then come back from there, because we're great at coming back with really good team fighting. We take Xin Zhao here. I think another opportunity we had was to take Azir, because Azir being open second best to Zoe is really, really good for us. But we decided not to, and I wanted Xin Zhao because I know they would ban it in the next rotation. It automatically gives me a good matchup into everything but Sejuani, because Sejuani is just too strong on the patch. And the next patch too, 7.24, she's also too strong. We ban Gnar. It's a staple ban against us because we don't play it, and we mostly play tanks. So we don't like playing against range stuff that can put our carries down, to say, and make our carries kind of useless because they're down so much CS. And then we adapt into Fiora ban because Wolf Skull Rider played really well on it last game, and it was too worrisome to let him have it twice in a row. We did not want to lose from topside advantage because of our own mistakes like we did in the previous game. NCSU's LeBlanc ban is staple. Lucido loves LeBlanc. It's a great counter pick. And NCSU goes for Cho'Gath after that. Like I said, it's a great pick for our top laner, Thunder Kitty, and we won game 1 with it. It was already unbeaten in the series for us. It's a really strong champion that has good matchups in the melee champions because of how strong his E is and how strong Grasp of the Undying is with him. We go with Maokai here. I think After the game, I was really angry because of this Maokai pick, because we know that they're able to play to a topside advantage, and we already see their mid lane pick. So there's no point in giving them the information of Maokai when they can still counter the Maokai, because we know we're not scared of them taking Maokai because of them wanting to play a split pusher. So I think this Maokai pick was a mistake. I brought it up after the game. You can't bring up mistakes during draft. I was really frustrated though, and you have to be able to control your emotions better than I was in that situation. We were so tunneled on Maokai being a really strong champion, which he is, but that also gives us a chance to get countered by something like Trundle, which is exactly what Will Skull Rider picks. Maokai can't actually do anything against this Trundle because Demolisher Rune on towers is ridiculously strong, and Maokai can't actually consistently stop him if Trundle gets a lead. Any help from the jungler or from global plays, and when they take Jarvan, now top lane is really easily abusable. Jarvan can just run up with Trundle pressing W and they hit the turret at like 1.8 attack speed. It's way too strong of a combo, and we didn't have an answer into it since we picked Maokai for no reason, I feel. Xin Zhao beats Jarvan again. Every champion, I think, in the game beats Jarvan on 7.24. I think Jarvan's a really, really bad champion, but some people value it really highly. I think it's extremely overrated, but NCSU goes for it here. We go with Lucido's Corki instead because we scrimmed the matchups, and our least successful matchup was actually Azir. I personally think Azir has an okay-ish matchup now that Zoe's sleep is nerfed, but before the sleep was nerfed, it was too hard to play against. So we went with Corki. This game, we gave away good power picks with Zoe and Xerath support, and then we gave away an unnecessary counter pick the top lane, where we could have just picked top lane with this pick, 5th pick counter pick red side, and picked Corki here because we knew 100% we were picking Corki. So I think we made a big mistake, but it's okay to make mistakes in best of fives if you know you won't make the same mistakes again. But we kind of drafted into 2 losing lanes, 1 winning jungle matchup and an even mid lane matchup / winning, because we know this matchup and we've practiced it more than they've probably practiced it in fives because they didn't actually play Zoe much in competitive before then. But at 1-1, you can take the most risk, and NCSU took the risk of Zoe. Since it's best of 5, 1-1, you can be much more risky in this spot. I think our mistakes lost us this pick and ban and forced us into a deficit that we didn't need to be at, and kind of lost us the game, I'd say. Throughout the game, we were up, but then we ended up throwing this game. I think we threw game 2 and 3. I think we should have won every game that we played, but we did not play according to our draft, and we played towards their pace instead. And that's how you lose games for most time. If you don't play to the beat of your own drum, then you're not going to win. So this is the game that starts late on the spectator point of view. So I'll have to pause. It's right about here. Okay. So the game was put up late by the spectator, which is fine. Doesn't matter. We go with Gnar, Xerath, and Janna. Gnar first because we're adapting away from the Shen ban. And this is when we decide, okay, we need to stop banning Shen and we need to play it and see how fast they're willing to pick it. Because we know we can play Shen into Fiora or something like hard melee Trundle. They go Kha'Zix's first ban because that's what they do the entire series, and that Kha'Zix is really good and it should be banned, and we expect it to be banned every single game we play. Our next ban is Xerath because we know we can't play against it and we struggle to play against it, and we struggled to play against it in scrims, but we tried to play Braum into it in scrims as well, and then it never really worked out for us. Then we played, or then NCSU banned Zoe here because Zoe is really strong and kind of became a red side necessity of a ban where we have to make sure the team on blue side doesn't get Zoe because they will first pick it and the champion is way too strong on 7.23 where we can't actually do anything for the most part in our own play style because it just generates picks so easily and does a ridiculous amount of damage. So the next ban is Honey's Jenna again. We kept this ban because we know how good Honey is at this champion, and we know just how oppressive the champion is in lane, and how much he's been playing it in solo queue shows he's really comfortable on it. And the NCSU actually goes for the Xin Zhao ban because I played it in the game before and I played really well against Pluck and Penguin. And like I said, we threw the game, but I could have carried it if I didn't make mistakes in shot calling. So they actually have to adapt into the Xin Zhao ban because Penguin can't play it. That's what that pick or that ban is telling me. He doesn't have enough playtime on the patch in order to be comfortable with playing the champion. And that actually leaves open Ezreal. So we get Ezreal first pick blue side. Our highest priority champion is Ezreal on the patch. If Kha'Zix and Ezreal are both open, then we would have picked Ezreal every single time. NCSU responds with Ornn Braum. It'll pop up in a second, but Ornn Braum is an amazing duo pick because Ornn is really, really strong and Braum is great at countering Ornn. So this also forced Seeker Wind off of the champion that he's played the entire best of 5, where he played Braum the first 3 games, and then this is making them play something else. However, we knew Hani doesn't actually like to play Braum, so this was kind of an uncomfortable pick for him. And we knew that with Ezreal already, we should have a winning bot lane because Hani is forced to play something he's not very good at, and we have our favorite champion. And unfortunately, NCSU knows we're too bottom and mid lane centric to play a carry into the Ornn. So they aren't nervous about it, and they take the Ornn, which is okay. Like at this point, Ornn actually has not won a game. Shen here is the ban that we consistently kept the whole game. We knew if Ornn goes open and they take Ornn, we'll gladly take Shen into it, and it fits my playstyle because I like to go really aggressive into the other team's jungle and look for fights. We take Tahm Kench because it's a huge counter pick to Ornn and Braum, and it helps Ezreal where Ezreal can E in and then get eaten by Tahm Kench. And it's actually not a pick we scrimmed much. We actually Secret doesn't play it much. Secret Wind doesn't play it much at all, and we were a little bit nervous after we picked it, but we went for it anyways. And then NCSU goes with Misfortune. Because Misfortune, Braum, like I said, is an extremely strong combo. And we were really nervous now, even though we had Ezreal, and Ezreal is our favorite pick on the whole patch, just because of how strong their comp with those 3 picks are. And our comp kind of looks a little shaky, but we know we're comfortable on 2 out of the 3 champions, and we know they're comfortable on 2 of the 3 champions. Tahm Kench is also much easier to play than Braum because even if you don't know how to use the Tahm Kench ulti very effectively, it's not as important as not knowing how to use Braum ulti or Braum wall effectively. NCSU goes for a LeBlanc ban again. It's a staple Lucido pick that he's loved forever. He actually doesn't play it much anymore, and he doesn't enjoy the champion, but just with how good he's been on it in the past, he still draws bans of it, and if he found a favorable matchup for it, he'd still play it. I went with Nidalee ban here. I asked for it because Nidalee is really strong. Penguin's really good at it. I don't like jungling against it for the most part, and it's really good with their comp that they're setting up where they need someone else in the back line to help the other carries to make sure they're safe, because Ornn and Braum are going to be hitting the front line with big CC, and it gets easy spears. And CSU goes for Malzahar ban, which we played earlier in the series. It's a good adaptation by them to keep an Ornn ban. However, 2 jungler bans was kind of surprising instead of 4 like they did in game 1, where they went with 4 jungle bans. I think it's their mistake for doing this. We ban Ori here just in case they go Jarvan Ori. We don't want to play against that combo with that team comp. That would be absolutely nuts and be unwinnable for us. NCSU takes Rek'Sai immediately after because they're still scared of letting me have an opportunity to play it. And I'll gladly just take the Graves back into Rek'Sai because it's a matchup that I've played a lot and I know I can win every time. It's something where Penguin's kind of iffy on Rek'Sai because he doesn't actually play much League, and Rek'Sai is kind of hard to play in competitive. Like I said earlier, her keystones aren't that great on the new patch, where they're kind of awkward where you want to take Electrocute or press the attack, depending on the playstyle, or Aftershock. There's like so many things people were trying to decide at the time, still kind of trying to decide, don't know which one's the best. I wasn't worried about Penguin's Rek'Sai ever. He was really worried about ours. And this is the comp that we go with Azir here, because Azir is the second strongest mid on the patch 100% behind Zoe. We were nervous about them having it, so we wanted to blind it, and we knew Shadow Visions actually wouldn't play an assassin into it. And that's kind of what beats Azir the hardest. But with this, we have 3 great backline champions, and Graves with Shenalty is super strong. And Tahm Kench can walk in and start eating the CC. Everyone else is out of range of all the other CC, or someone that gets caught up in CC can just get Tahm Kench 8. So Tahm Kench's utility in this game was absolutely insane, which allowed us to survive so many things and win so many fights that we honestly should not have won, just because Secret Wind was playing out of his mind. The final pick of Talia is also bad into Tahm Kench, but this comp is the dream NCSU comp, where they have great ways to dive bot lane and an insane dive bot composition. However, Ezreal's strength and Azir's strength and Graves' strength and Shenalty is too strong to let NCSU actually get their dive bottom shot off, and it just countered their draft overall. I think if we did this draft over again, NCSU would take those same 5 champions and they'd try it again, because that's just how comfortable they are on this comp. And then that's something you have to know as a scouter, as a pick ban analyst, as anybody that actually wants to win big series matches, that you have to know exactly what the other team wants to play and what sides they play towards and what they play towards as an advantage. So this game is game 5 after we take the win, because our comp counters theirs really well. My client actually bugged out in this pick ban, so these bans take a long time to go through. So I'm going to let it play, and hopefully my explaining will get caught up with. Unfortunately, NCSU sticks with Kha'Zix, and we have to ban Ezreal because 7.23, champion's too strong. NCSU goes back to Rek'Sai, which they banned every game on blue side. Did not let me have it on red side. We go with Xerath ban again because we know how strong the poke bot lanes are, and we can't play poke bot lane because it's too hard for us, since we sometimes trail towards mid lane with our advantages, and I gank mid and I play around mid more than I play around bot lane. So it can tend to be a little hard to have those poke lanes get help that they need. I'll skip ahead because this is where the next ban comes in, and NCSU goes back to the Ornn ban. They had these exact same bans in game 3. We expected these exact 3 bans because it's exactly what we thought they would do again, because they didn't really lose game 3's pick and ban, and they won the game. So we were a little bit worried about it. We go with Zoe ban last because we had to adapt into a hard matchup that We knew now NCSU would be willing to play it, and they'd play it well. And then this is kind of the most interesting thing that they did. I'm not sure I like it at all, but they go with MF first pick blue side. We have the ability to go Braum into it, but they still are willing to go for it. I think it's kind of a mistake. I would have rather seen them go the Janna that we knew they would play, or Braum again, even though he's not comfortable on it. And Forsaw is the early pick Tom Kench. But we get Shen and Xin Zhao, and this combo is extremely good for my playstyle and helps me out a lot because Xin Zhao loves the fight, and if I have a Shen ulti to back me up, then we are like really, really, really aggressive in the early game. And I love to be aggressive in the early game, even though Penguin has been playing mostly tank junglers after game 1 where he int fed on Nidalee. He adapted into tanks and just played to scale against me. NCSU goes with Gnar here. We didn't have a chance to ban it away, and it's okay. We weren't as worried about it, and we trusted Thunder Kitty to be able to play against it if they early rotated it. And when you pick a champion like Gnar this early, it leaves something else bannable, or something else where your comp is now missing something that you could have gotten in the earlier rotation. They get the Janna that we banned every single game in the series because we were worried about how good Honey would be on it, but it's okay because we now have our entire top half of the map completely picked, and we see their bottom side. So even though they get 2 bans, we still have so many champions we can play into those 2 champions and still win. Find a winning lane. So we have the priority champions that we want, where we really want Shen, we really want Xin Zhao, and we really want Azir. And that gives us like 3 winning situations, even though I can get counterpicked. I asked to ban Nidalee again just because how good Penguin. I know Penguin can be on it, even though he had a bad game 1. I know he's good at it, and I know he would take it again into my Xin Zhao, because if Nidalee gets an early red buff, she can beat Xin Zhao down if she catches him with no E, so he doesn't have a way to get onto her, and she can poke him out of the jungle really easy. NCSU goes for Braum ban because we didn't take Braum in the MF, and we were kind of just really, really like desiring the combo of 3 champions that we picked here, and our bot lane didn't care if they ate 2 bans. So we trusted our team, and they trusted us in order to find what we really wanted. And that's okay. If your team can trust you and you know you have enough champions that you can find something that will win, then you should go for what you know is the strongest. And I knew I was really strong on Xin Zhao, Lucido was really strong in Azir, and Thunder Kitty's really strong on Shen. So that's what we went with. And then NCSU adapts into Braum and Tom Kench bans, which are the only supports Sequin played in the entire series. The casters pointed that out. It was great pick and ban by them, forcing us onto something that we aren't obviously comfortable on, or something we played less, because we prioritize the other champions so much higher. So I think that is awesome by them, but it left open Jhin, and we are really good at Jhin. Audis is the best Jhin probably I've ever played with. His Jhin is super, super clean, and with a lead, it works so well with our comp because he can stay so far back next to Lucido's Azir and deals like an insane amount of damage to the 1 frontline champion that we know they already have. NCSU goes for Corki into Azir, which is kind of a winning lane for Azir because he'll do a lot of damage since you don't go Hex Drinker in that matchup as Corki. So it gives us a poke lane mid where we'll have an advantage. We have on this Jhin into MF and Janna. This is hard to say. I think Sejuani is extremely good on the patch. Probably the best tank jungler in the game the last 2-3, like maybe even all like the last season, the best champion, like tank champion on the patch. And it's a really hard matchup for Xin Zhao because she can evade him much easier. I did scouting on Upsurge VOD where of Pluckin Penguin playing Sejuani on red side, but I didn't get a VOD of him playing Sejuani on blue side, so I didn't actually know what clear he'd go for. It was really hard for me. It was much more of a guessing game. But our Taric pick denies their frontline engage and allows our frontline engage to be even stronger. Xin Zhao plus Taric is a really good combo. Xin Zhao plus Shen is a really good combo. And it guarantees gets either 3 of the frontline champions or 2 backline champions next to Taric ulti, so they're all safe. And it gives us a great disengage comp. Well, NCSU also has a somewhat disengage comp and engage comp, but our comp is just actually stronger because Nara's engage is situational. If Janna gets behind, she's way less useful than Taric. And Corki needs a lot of items to actually ramp up to get strong, where our early game priority matchup is going to be able to abuse that. And that's how we actually win the game. We get a good early game advantage, and then we abuse Shen LT being too strong, and it leads us to the game 5 victory. At a certain point, Shen will just outbeat Nar, and Shadow Visions throws the game by getting caught by Jin Azir two-shotting him. There's just nothing he can do. I'll show the end so you can see the final clip of Lucido's 4-man ulti on Azir. Lucido actually ended with a 28 or 27 KDA on Azir, and I think NCSU should have had more respect for it after the game. They played against it, but they chose not to, and they chose to be more concerned about Seeker wins champion pool, which I don't think should have been such a worry after getting Janna and such a strong, comfortable pick for them. NCSU played really well, and overall they adapted pick and ban well. They had good counter plays on our mistakes, and they adapted into a brand new play style that they never really played to before in the top lane carry, where they usually just play it for a TP bot to go bot lane and help them win the game. But they chose not to, and they played extremely smart adaptively. They just kind of choked under the pressure, and that's something NCSU has done in the past. I think they need to be less tunneled on champions, especially in game 5. I think they were really tunneled on Misfortune, and they were really tunneled on Janna because we banned it all of those times. So just because we ban something doesn't mean we're necessarily terrified of it. I mean, we're a little scared of it, to say. And I think they could have tried the game without a Kha'Zix ban and try to see if they could play Sejuani or Gragas into it, because those have pretty good matchups into Kha'Zix, but they chose not to, and they took a hard 3-2 loss. Not to take anything away from them, but I do think we should have won games 2 and 3, but we lost on our own mistakes and NCSU's correct punishments of them. Overall, it was a really well fought series, and their coaching staff should be pretty proud of how they adapted, and their players should appreciate how their coaches were prepared for the games. I think they should have been a little bit more aggressive on Jhin bans, because they showed in game 1 that they didn't want to play against Oddness's Jhin, and they realized it was a strong pick because they didn't ban 3 junglers in game 1. They banned Oddness's Jhin over another jungler. That could have been their own fault. I don't know. I think they could have also adapted into a Graves ban, because I played Graves and Xin only for the entire series, because I thought the 2 champions were both ridiculously strong on the patch, and I wasn't prepared enough to play something like Shyvana or Kayn. But it was they were too scared of letting me have the Kayn anyways, and I picked other champions over it because I didn't think Kayn was that strong. Overall, it was a great series. I think NCSU should have paid more attention to Azir on the patch. I realized just how incredibly strong he is and how much influential he can have in a team fight oriented team comp. So thank you all for watching. It's a long video. If you made it all the way, give it a like. It's gonna be my first video on my YouTube channel. I'm going to do a pick ban analysis video of Ohio State. If this one just gets like 3 likes, I'll post it to the Compete League subreddit. I think everyone should use this to kind of better themselves and pick ban if they can. So thank you guys and have a great day.